Testing. 1, 2, 3. Check. Audio check. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think it's about 1 o'clock here in the U.S. Time to get started. I'm Larry Hamilton. Thank you for watching. Welcome to my YouTube painting channel. Today we're going to do an oil painting, and if you've been watching a little bit, you may have seen a photograph of what we're going to do. It's a New England scene, a fall scene from New Hampshire, actually, and the photo credit goes to Charlie Johnson from the Facebook page, Photos for Artists, which I think I've mentioned before that you know I am a member of, and they have hundreds and hundreds of photos out there. So if you're an artist looking for material to paint, interested in something, they have albums full of photographs that are free, royalty free, copyright free, that you can paint from. So excuse me, today we're going to do this painting of a fall New Hampshire scene. I'm probably going to put a little more orange and fall colors in it that's actually in the photograph, but anyway, that's what we're going to do. And let me step over to my computer very quickly and I'll show you what I did to the photograph. I didn't do too much to this one, but I'll just go over my normal review for you. I'll be right back. Okay, here I am at the computer, and I want to show you the original photo that I started with. This is it, a very beautiful, peaceful scene in a lake in New Hampshire. Almost no sky, a lot of middle ground, quite a few rocks, some water in the foreground that we can play with putting highlights on, and some big rocks in the foreground as well. I did crop it, as I usually do, but it almost shows no difference. I made it fit an 11 by 14 pixel count, or 11 by 14 aspect ratio. I think I've talked to you about that before, that you can take a photograph into a photo editor, and if you want to crop it to get it to fit one of your standard painting sizes, like 11 by 14 or 16 by 20, to figure out what that aspect ratio is, you divide the larger number by the smaller number, width and height, and you get a number. It's like 1.27 or 1.28. And then you use that to make the pixel count of the photograph you're trying to crop match that ratio as close as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can make it match 1.27 to 1, you'll have an aspect ratio that fits nicely on the canvas you're painting on, or paper if you're painting on watercolors. So I use that a lot to sort of get it to fit my painting surface, and it also fits nicely on the TV screen when I'm making these videos. So here's a little picture of the grid. It's a 4x5 grid, which basically fits very nicely on a 11 by 14 canvas. And also I do my value map, which I think I've described to you before, is basically 3 values, light, medium, and dark. And I try to get them in sort of interlocking shapes if I can, to make it a little bit like a puzzle, to kind of help the eye move through the painting from the lights to the mids to the darks. And I have, I think, one video will put actually how I do that with Photoshop. It's not real complicated, but it does take a little bit of time. And then also I have the sketch that you have probably been watching for a few minutes if you've been on before I started. And this sketch will be made available to you in the links below this video, and also on my website. Actually, I put them on my website, and then I put the links on the video when I upload a new version up to YouTube. So I think that's all I want to say here at the computer. I can manage these photographs here better at the computer than I can standing at my easel, because it's so clunky to try to show you things from the easel. So I use this technique. Mauro, hello from Italy. Welcome. Glad to see you here. All right, so I'm going to go back to my easel now, and we'll get going. Okay, I'm back, and let's get going on this painting. I want to show you first my palette, and it hasn't changed from last painting. I have the same set of colors, I have the same set of brushes. I have my 3 Bob Ross brushes. I have this landscape brush, I have a rigger, and I have a fan brush. May not use those too much, but I still have that in my inventory of paint brushes. I have a number of Trekell brushes, T-R-E-K-E-L-L. There's a 16, these are all filberts here. There's 5 filberts, a 16, 10, 6, 2, and 0. And then I have 5 flats from Trekell. There's a 16, 12, 8, 4, and 0. So I may not use all of those. I don't know how many I will use, but it doesn't matter. I'll use what the painting calls for. And I also have a couple of painting knives. I have the big Bob Ross painting knives that he sells, his number 5. I think it's number 5 painting knife. And also have another small painting knife here that I may use. But anyway, that's the brushes and my instruments. I'll go over the paints very quickly for you. You probably have these memorized by now, but we have here titanium white. These are Bob Ross colors, except for 2 Grumbacher colors. Titanium white, phthalo blue, Prussian blue, midnight black, Van Dyke brown, dark sienna, alizarin crimson, sap green, cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, Indian yellow, and bright red. Those are all Bob Ross paints. I have a Grumbacher cadmium orange here. I thought the orange would help us to get some of the colors in this nice fall scene. And I also have, it's kind of its complement, which is this ultramarine violet. So that's my paints, that's my brushes, and I'm going to get started on this right now. A thing I just realized is I didn't put out some thinner and not thinner, but well, yeah, medium anyway. It's my if I get the right bottle out here, I haven't pulled out. Hold on, and I'll put a little bit of this medium in my come on here, there we go. Usually I have this stuff all done. I don't have to take time to do it. That's why I like to do it before. This is something called Liquin, L-I-Q-U-I-N, by Winsor Newton, and it's really a medium that helps the painting dry faster, and it also helps the painting flow very nicely on the canvas. So I'm going to use a little bit of white. I'm not going to use any liquid white today, but I will use some, just to get a nice background here. I'm going to thin this down a little bit with Liquin, and just put a little bit in here in some areas where we're going to have some sky. Not much sky going on in this painting. There's a few spots in here that are going to have some holes to peek through the trees, but that's that's about the extent of it. I just realized I didn't have my proper camera going out to the broadcast, and I didn't take the time to zoom in on it, so I'll do that right now. Okay, let's do that and get this thing lined up for you. Actually, I'm going to put it over here a little bit to the side, and I want to put my palette on top of it, so I'm going to put it down here on the bottom. There we go. Now that's the way I should have had it set up before I started. I got so surprised I didn't have my Liquin out here that I forgot to do that. So okay, all I really did is basically put in a little bit of area for sky holes here with this big filbert, 16 filbert. That may be all I need that Liquin for, I don't know. But let's get in here and put a little bit of sky in this thing, not too much. These colors that I have, these Bob Ross colors, are very, very strong and very potent. All of them are very strong because he always painted with a canvas covered in liquid white for the most part. He did a few with liquid black or something, but most of the time he had this liquid white, and liquid white was really dilute these colors down. So his mixtures of colors that they sold always were very, very strong. And I'm just going to pop a little bit of this in here, a little bit of color in, enough to allow me to have some see-through holes when I put the sky over this, or put the trees over these areas. We just want a little bit of this either light color or this blue color to shine through, and that's about all I want to do there. Let's see here. I'm going to put just a little more white, pick up some more white without blue in it, and put a few little fluffy clouds up here. Not going to be too many to see, but I just want to put a little bit of texture, something in there to kind of make the eye realize there's some clouds up here. Very, very light, very, very small amount of clouds up there. Don't have to do a lot, just enough to give it some overriding texture a little bit. Okay, I think we're good with that. Let me clean this brush out and get going here. All right, these trees, I think I'm going to paint this typically back to front, which I like to do, but the farthest back trees and so forth are back here in this area, and they have a combination of green and some grays in them. So you know, we can always make a gray. We can gray down green. Question of the day is, how do you gray down green? Well, you use a complementary color, and red is a complementary color to green. So I pull up some red, and if you look at my palette here, you can actually see that green getting grayer and browner. The red pulls the color out and makes it a little brownish color. I can also put some brown in it if I want. Pick up a little of my dark sienna there and put a little bit of that in it. That will also brown it up a little bit. But basically over here in this area, it's almost too green. I think I'll put a little more red in there and get it grayer. Could put a little midnight black in there and gray it down a little bit even with some white. See if I can get this color. I'm going to try to take my time today. I'm not in a big rush. I hope you're not in a big rush. But we'll put in a number of these little trees back in here. Try to cover the sky. Leave some areas for some sky holes. These are trees that have lost a lot of their leaves, and some of them are starting to get some color in them. So let's just put in something like that. A little bit of my gray. I'm going to pick up a little bit of this white and midnight black. I'll pick up a little more gray here. Start putting in some other values, other colors over here like this. You can start seeing, once I start changing the value a little bit, lightening it up, you can start seeing the a little bit of the texture of these trees that are sort of in front of those ones behind it. And even put a little of my violet in there, pick up a little of this violet. Haven't really washed my brush out. I've wiped some of the paint out of it, but I haven't washed it with thinner, so it's still I'm still getting these nice mixtures of previous colors on here, and I'm able to get a nice set of fine branches as I'm pushing up. I'm letting these bristles on here be the 100 little paintbrushes that sort of push this tree out, and using the little bit of this ultraviolet helps me change the color a little bit and helps me distinguish it from the background, from the trees behind it. So we're just kind of painting from back to front, right to left right now. So these are, they're looking violet, which is okay. Some of them have lost all their leaves, and so they're just basically little branches. And so I'm just trying to create that color that's got a little bit of mixture of colors in it, a little bit of brown, a little bit of violet, lightening it up a little bit here and there. So I'm not making big brush strokes. I'm not even making the old Bob Ross X stroke, as he called it, which he used to put on a lot. I'm just using the back of this brush and letting the bristles make their own trees, make their own texture. And by changing the color slightly, a little bit of dark, a little bit of light, and we can actually show depth. So if I put something a little darker on top of this, a bit more of my violet, say, I will start showing you. It has to be a little darker than that. Come on here, a little darker. We'll start showing you. I have to make it really darker than it is on the photograph I'm looking at, because the camera kind of dilutes it down a little bit and distorts the values a little bit. Camera will usually do that. You have to be careful using digital cameras because they definitely change values on you. Color is not too bad. Usually you get the colors close, but they also distort them because they try to average out values across their image silicon image capture chip that's in all these digital cameras. I'm going to put a few of these up here, just sort of change this color a little bit, add a few more light things up there. Okay, so I'm getting some nice looking things. I got some really darks back in here I'm going to put in next after a bit, but I've got a lot of other colors to work with here. I'm going to clean this brush out now with some thinner and let it rest for a few minutes while I use another brush. I'm going to start putting in a few of these trees in the back behind here. They have more yellow and orange in them. I'm going to use ochre for some of that and my Indian yellow to pick up some of those colors. And I'll even, to gray it down, I'm going to pick a little bit more of this violet up. So let's see if I can get some colors in here that kind of represent what was in the photograph a little bit. I want them to be light, and I want them to be just really kind of fuzzy on the edges out there. I don't know if you can see that well, but I'm trying to make an abstract shape. I don't want this to be angular. I don't want it to be rectangular. I want it to be abstract. So I'm making a sort of a floating type. If you were to draw a line over this, it goes like this and dips and then comes down here. These sizes are a little bit, they're different sizes, different widths, different heights. You have to think about abstract shapes in everything you do, because that's what makes paintings beautiful. That's what makes people attracted to your paintings. Some bit of green in there, throwing a little more green. I'm just touching in some sap green in here on top of what's already there. But you can see the change, the subtle changes by just pushing this in and making a lot of trees back there. Hello, Louisa from South Africa. Welcome. Glad you could make it today. If you have any questions, folks, you have the chat window there, and please feel free to ask. I'll try to keep an eye on my computer up here by my easel and see if I can answer your questions as you may type them in. I'm putting in a few dark sienna trees here. This is a heavy wooded area back here, very, very heavy. It's got some nice colors in it. It has some nice changes of value. So that's really all I'm trying to do here, is get some, make it look like a very, very, very heavy and dark wooded area. Got some of my violets here. Violet makes a good color to kind of counterbalance white or greens with. Oranges, of course, yellows. So I kind of use this yellow or this violet color a lot to give me a contrasting value. Okay, over here this is all going to be nice orange, bright orange trees. So I'm going to put a little background color in here that I can paint over. I'm just kind of working my way down the mountain over there back behind all of this, putting in a mixture of colors, that browns and violets. There. Okay. So I've got some nice changes of color, changes of value. Just a little bit down here in these areas. I want to remember where my trees go. I've got a number of trees that kind of stick up here that are going to be reflected down in the water, so I want to make sure that I don't forget those and don't lose track of them where they are. So as I paint my way down this canvas here, I want to make sure I preserve some of that. So I'm just painting sort of the tops of a lot of trees here, and I'm going to put some really darks in here to help define it a little bit. There's actually a road back there. I'm not going to make a road out of it, but I'm going to put a base underneath it that I can paint over very easily. Okay, so that blue is really sticking out up there. I'm going to just slightly cover it a little bit. I don't like it that bright. That's why I said that blue color just is very potent. Hello, David from Oxford, UK. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Okay, so that's pretty much what I want to do there. Put a few more base colors in here, just sort of clean my brush out a little bit. Have something besides just clear canvas here, because I'm going to paint over all of that. Okay. Clean this brush out a little bit. All right. If I want to put those darks in yet or not. I've got some really dark in there that the camera made it almost black. And this is one of the failures of digital cameras. They give you some really darks, and I've got a little bit of dark in here in some places. Probably not going to make it as dark as it shows on the camera, because the camera does turn things black when you don't want them to be black. So I'm going to put in some areas that are kind of dark here, and we'll come back and paint some lighter colors over that. I'm not trying to not make it as dark as it shows in the photograph. Photograph's very dark. And we got areas that are sort of dark back in this area as well. I have tree branches over, and I'll come back and put some tree branches over this to make that dark stand out a little bit. Really, see, it goes down. That's all bright. This is where all the dark is, back in here. So I'm using black and Van Dyke brown here together, and throwing a little bit of my violet in there to give me some color change, so it's not all the same color. But this is all fairly dark, all the way down to this road back here. darks in here. Darks are spread all over this thing, really. So I'm not making that quite as dark as I could. Pretty well wiped out my little sky hole there, but you can still see it. Okay, over this way we've got a few more darks in this area. So just pop them in and we'll come back and paint over them, and we'll help make that, it won't look quite as splotchy or as ugly as it might be looking right now to you. Paintings all go through an ugly phase, and I may have reached an ugly phase already here with this one. All right, let's hold off on that now for a little bit and see if we can put in a few. Want to get in some a little bit lighter paint here. I'm going to put in some of these tree trunks that are kind of coming up in the. See if I can show them to you here. Let's see, they're sort of coming up from this area here. There's like, that is not really dark enough, is it? So I'm going to go back and get some darker material here. Still not dark enough. I'm going to have to add some. Darkest dark you can get usually is the blacks that you buy. Typically, even this black from Bob Ross sort of turns violet on you when you add paint to it. But you can use alizarin and your green, a dark green and blue, and you'll get a really dark. There's a tree trunk. There we got one. Another one here. And thin ones over here. They go up into space back here. So I'm just putting in some that maybe are probably not even in the photograph necessarily. I'm just sort of filling this space in over here with some things that make it look like there's a lot of trees and branches and things going on. I'm going to get my my rigger. This rigger has nice thin bristles on it, and I'm going to lighten it up. I'm going to put a little bit of this lighter, some white, maybe even pick up a little of my liquid and get a nice thin layer of light gray here, and start putting in a few. Needs to be lighter than that, whiter than that, I should say. So I'm getting a thin mixture, and I'm going to see if I can put in a few. I don't know if you can see it that well or not, but these are sort of a lot of branches back here that are just sort of, they've lost all their leaves, so by taking this light color and putting it on, say, one side of this trunk, you can sort of give yourself a nice little highlight and just pull it up into like that. Okay, that's starting to look kind of what I want to get out of this. Maybe there's a couple over here that have a little lighter edge on them. So I'm just sort of mixing the colors with what's on the canvas already, and just giving ourselves some nice, cute little tree branches sitting back there in the distance. They're not that far back, actually. They're kind of in the middle ground, but let's put in a lot of these. If you have the thinner paint, it will go over a thicker paint. So sort of put these in, make them in an X fashion. You want to think about, when you paint tree branches, think about painting them like your hand. If you laid your hand up there, make those branches go as your hand goes almost. Actually, a better way to think about it might be even to think about them as a clock. If you started up here at 12 and went to 1, 2, you want them to sort of fan out like they were in a clock pattern. So that's what helps help them to look kind of real, because they do have that way of growing generally. Okay, a couple more over here, and I'm going to stop on this. I don't want to get too busy. Don't want it to look too crazy back there. All right, stop for now. Adam, hello, thank you. Your comment is your trees all change for the better when you get a proper rigger. Yeah, the rigger really makes a lot of difference because it's got these long bristles, and if you get enough thin paint, it really makes a big difference in your build. You saw when I was using this flat 0 how wide and fat my trunks were. Now, you may want trunks that fat and wide, but you can't get these nice thin branches like we were getting here very well with a fat, even a 0 brush. So let's let it stand at that, and I'll see if I need to come back to that later, but right now I'm going to hold off and move on to something else. Okay, so let's look now. Where are we? Got that pretty well finished off. There's some, starts turning lighter here. Got a little green coming in, coming down to these rocks. These rocks here, I want to make sure I preserve those. That's why I like to have a sketch on here, because it reminds me there's rocks right here. And I don't want to paint over those and lose that. I am going to put in some green. There's some green grass and some stuff here it's got to have a little more ochre in it than that. I'm using sap green and ochre and some bright cad yellow, sort of get this color, see if that's the color I want. Yeah, that's pretty close to what's in the photograph. These are just I don't know, like grasses that have grown up, and just sort of lining the road actually. So as I push down and pull my brush up, I'm actually painting over some of my trees, which is fine. Make sure I preserve that rock area there. But I want to try to keep it somewhat muted. I don't want it to be really bright. When you put this cad yellow in, it starts getting pretty bright, and you have to sort of tone it down with ochre or some other color. Okay, so just very loose paint back here, pulling up and letting it, pulling up and pulling the brush away is what I'm doing here. So it gives that top of those that look like they're just a bunch of weeds growing back there, which is what they are. See, this is all, there's a little bit of that over here going on, this area, over the top of these rocks. So I'll go ahead and put that in while I got my brush going. And there's a bunch more of it going on over this area, but I'm going to stop on that, I think, for right now and just leave it set that way. There is some darker underpainting there that shows some shadows here. Put some brown in the tip of my brush and just sort of pulling it down this way. What's that doing? It's giving me another layer, because I have darks on top of lights and lights on behind darks. I'm going to get down here to get into some of the, this is more brush down in this area. So you can just see contour of the land by just putting in these little dark, using the top of the brush to just push in some things to help highlight it. Those might be rocks that are covered up with grasses. Gray rocks in here. A few darks over here, not many. Trying to get around this rock. So it's helping me do three-dimensional. It's helping it look three-dimensional, I should say. If you can get 2 to 3 values in your objects, whatever they are, whether it's a rock or grass or trees or whatever, if you can get 3 values in, you start making it look three-dimensional. And that's all we're trying to do. We're fooling the eye into thinking this is a three-dimensional space out here when everybody knows it's not. Okay. What else can I do there? I see a nice, looks like it's not a log, maybe a broken off tree that's kind of sitting here. I want to kind of capture above this rock right here. I think I had it started there, but I think I painted over it. I'm using this zero brush. There's just sort of like a broken tree trunk sitting there. So I just make it touch the bottom of this rock and let it go with that. Put a few other echoes of that color here so we don't have okay, I'm going to leave it like that. I really had almost two-tone in my brush. When I pushed it and went down and came up, it left that kind of a rough-looking surface. You can almost see that that's a tree trunk that's been broken off. Some of it's about brush control, some of it's about color. Okay, so here we got a lot of yellow, followed by a lot of orange, some more tree trunks. So this yellow is a, I'm going to see if I can use this same brush here, I think. I'm going to mix a little more cad yellow in with my yellow ochre. See if I can brighten it up, get a couple of colors on my brush, and I'll put these all in behind here, behind this tree. Needs to have a little bit more ochre in it. Now I'm tapping. Put it on. Bit of this, pick up a little bit of my darker color to get another value. The darker values will help give you some three-dimensionality here. Well, oh, that looks a little bit too yellow. Let's see if I can change it by adding some ochre and white in here. There we go. It needs a little bit of white on top of it to give it some highlights. So I'm trying to get three values again. A mid value, which is what I put on first, followed by a few shadows, followed by some light highlights. That's almost too much highlight. It's way too bright. When you look at that, it just pulls your eye right there. So we don't want that. We want to soften that up a little bit by just putting in some light brush strokes over it. Pull it out there like that. Still just a little bit too light, but I think I may leave it for now, and when I do my assessment in a little bit, I'll step back, look at it, and see if I need to tone it down a little bit. So I'm just moving my way across this canvas. That does not look like much of an abstract shape to me. It looks sort of rounded off, a little bit like a pie shape to some extent, which I prefer not to have. So let's see if I can fix that a little bit by just adding a few more touches here and there, pulling it in, pulling it back. It's not quite as obvious, but let's pull over here a little bit more of this. Continue this way. And I see, as I go across there, I see some greens floating through, so I'm going to put just a little bit of this sap green on my brush and see if I can pull in just a little bit of that in some areas. Pull it back in like this. Use that as sort of the third value in here. All right, That's not too bad. All right, now let's see if we can get a trunk. I've got another trunk that goes right up through the middle of this tree and goes up into that area. So I'm going to get my rigger out here and give me some thinner to work with, and get me a nice kind of a dark brownish color. Brownish color with a little gray in it maybe. We'll see what happens. I'm going to go right here and I'm going to push down and then pull up. So if I push down, it should give me a fat, use this rigger for not a rigger but as a wide brush, and then just pull up like that. You can't even see it, can you? I can see it, but I can't see it when I turn around and look at the camera. I have a monitor here beside me and I can turn around and look at that to see if it's doing what I want and looking the way I want it to look on the finished video. And need some more darker on this left side, so I'm going to come back again and put another dark, pull it up, it goes up into here like that. Has another branch or two sticking off of it here like this. My dark, probably there's a little better, I think. Maybe, yeah, that's looking a little better. So this goes up into here, and then we start getting some of those orange looking things going on. I got this other brush with my yellows, and I'm going to paint behind it. There's another tree right in here that I'm going to put in while I still can remember it and don't want to forget it. And I'm going to paint right around it right now. There's a lot of dark rock and stuff down in here. Let's put this all in right in here. It has these yellow colors. It has some, picks up some other value change in there in some areas. Okay, now I'm going to come back and use my rigger again and get some more of this color. I'm going to put a little more violet in this one, I think. See what that does. I want to change the color up. I don't want all these trunks to look the same color, even though in the photograph they might be identical. I don't want them to look identical. I'm sort of squiggling this in now with a jiggly hand. People say I can't draw a straight line. Well, I don't want you to draw a straight line. I want you to draw a jiggly line, especially when you're painting something like a tree trunk or a tree branch. The more you can give it some movement. See, I didn't draw that perpendicular either. I changed it so it wasn't quite perpendicular to the one over here. I made that one. These two are perpendicular, which I might want to change that a little bit, but I'll leave that for a little bit later. Some other things going on in here that give us some more texture in these trees. Something like that. So I'm just building this thing toward us. I'm just kind of coming from the back to the front, and I'm going to build it up to this big rock in the front and see if that's how that works. Ihor, wow, welcome, thank you. Glad you're here. Are you from Russia? I don't know, I can't tell from the names necessarily where people are from. It doesn't make any difference anyway. Just like to know who we have joining our group here. Glad to see all of you here. I'm going to put a little bit of this lighter color on the side of this. It's almost too light, but let's tone it down just a little. Make it look a little different. And the top of it be really jagged or rugged. All right, stop. I'm getting too much, putting in too much detail now. But I want these things to sort of have some trunks and tree branches and all that sort of stuff going on up in here. Just going to put in a few more things. I'll paint over most of these, but if I have them in there, I can at least highlight a few. Hello, Heather. You're welcome from Mississippi. Got a real global audience here today, folks. Okay, so I think it's time to start pulling out my oranges here. I'm going to get a flat brush. I think I'm going to get this, I think about this size. This is my number 8 flat. I'm going to pick up this orange, put a little white over here, see if I can get a couple of 2-3 tones of orange. Can add some yellow to it if I want, and I can come back again. This is a good one to use my violet with to give me a dark value. So I can get here, I can get several shades, some nice shadow colors with this violet color, and then the orange and some titanium white here in the middle and for like a highlight color, and then I'll just use the orange as it is almost for my main color. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to again get this brush loaded with paint on both sides, and we're going to start in here. I still have the white on there nicely. That's really getting paint on my hands. Let's try this again here. I'm going to add just a little red to that. See if I can change that color of orange just slightly to make it a little more reddish color. See if I can get a little closer to it. This is a lot of orange going on here. Since I underpainted that already, I have some dark underpainting for it. So that whenever I leave a little gap or miss an area, that's what shows through. It's either the gray canvas or it's the that underpainting of violet that I put on there. Okay, I like that. It's too bright. I really like having this camera set up and this monitor behind me, because I can look back and see what it looks like on camera, and I can tell whether or not it's the kind of shape I want, the kind of color, kind of value. So I'm trying to get these built in, have them come out and just sort of go over the clouds a little bit. It's quite a different color than the colors over here. It's really a different, whole different set of tones that we're working with. So I'm going to have to balance it. I'll be able to balance some of it with the reflections maybe, and I may just put some orange over here just to force it to balance. Matter of fact, while I'm thinking about it, I may put that balance in right now. Just put a few of those colors right in this area over there. It's not quite as bright as what I'm putting on the canvas up here, but just trying to get a good mixture of oranges and throw some yellows in there. This thing comes down, way down. Let's see, it comes down all the way down into here. So it's a big area of it's a huge trees, actually sets of trees that go in here. And come all the way down to this area. They actually come down to here, and then they start turning more yellow as they get over this way. So I'm going to put some underpainting of this color in here. You can see how that gray canvas, I don't think I told you we're painting on 11 by 14 canvas today, which is my standard size, and it also has a gray gesso on it. That's a mid-tone gray and mid-value gray, not tone, mid-value. And so I'm just trying to paint in some nice tree shapes here. Again, I don't think I've used this brush. I don't think I've used it like this at all yet today. I'm just painting with the back of it, little pushing up strokes. So I'm painting around this sky hole here, I guess you want to call it. Original painting didn't have these sky holes in it. Original photo, I should say. Sort of using my artistic license here and adding some areas here that make it look like it's have a little more interest than just all this orange color here. I'm gonna change this color a little bit from the orange, start getting into a little more yellows. So I'll be picking up my combination of ochres and cad yellow as I move over this way. Okay, it's looking halfway decent. Spending a lot of time painting these trees here. We've been going for not quite an hour, about 50 minutes or so. But I am trying to take enough time to make this a nice completed painting. Let's see, this is a more yellowish, yellow and yellow-green down here, so I'm going to put in this underpainting of yellow down here, this color, and I'll come back and do some green over the top of it. And we got some fence posts or something. It might even be more tree trunks over here, I don't know. Got a bunch of trees floating in here. All right, we're making good progress here. It's really interesting to turn around and look at my TV monitor and see what it looks like to you compare it to what it looks like to me. These digital cameras do a wonderful job, but they also distort things a little bit. Be aware of that, especially when you're taking photos or painting from a photo, which is what I do a lot of. Paint from a lot of photos. So I have to constantly check myself and make sure I'm not getting deceived by the camera. Very easy to get deceived by the camera. Make these a little smaller here. There we go. I don't want those to be, when I start out, they're all about the same size. I don't want them to be the same size. I don't want them to be the same shape. So I'm going to put some either branches through there or change the shape or something. So let's just keep moving on down here. We've got trees to put in. I'm going to step back, take a little look, see how we're doing. Looking pretty decent, I think. That blue really stands out, doesn't it? back and get a little more orange now and see if we can get some more of this orange color in here in some areas. Sort of making it go the way these trees are all kind of hanging over this water in some areas, and so I'm sort of trying to mimic that thing. Put in a few scrub brush marks here and just fill this in. Leave room for these trees. I don't want to forget where they are, so I'll leave a little bit of my little openings there. Okay. I actually have some more green over here in this area. I'm going to have to come back and put some green over that. Okay, let's see up here. Put in some, just touch in some this orange color. I'm leaving a little more paint on the canvas. You can't see the thickness of the paint, but I am leaving more paint on the canvas here than I did in some of those other areas. I want to sort of this little stippling effect, if you would. Just changing up my sky hole patterns here a little bit so they don't look so big and so perfect. All right, so that's enough of that for a while. Let's change our plan here and go to a little bit more of some more of our trees. I think I'm going to stick with this rigger. I really like the way it's working so far. This black doesn't really get black. I'm going to add some alizarin to it. That'll darken it down. If I want it even darker, I'll put a little sap green in there, and that'll get it even darker. The darkest color you can really make without using black is usually alizarin crimson and viridian green. I have a number of tree branches laying in here like this. Got some down here. Like that. I should have painted the background color behind there before I put that in, but I didn't. So let's see if we can put a few more things in like that. Could use our knife and even scrape out a few. It's not going to work too well because I don't have a dark enough color on top. Over here that would work. You could put in some nice little scrapes like that with the back of the palette knife. You have a gray canvas in back, so you can actually show some light tree branches over there. It's a favorite trick, as I recall, from Bob Ross. All right, let's see here how we're doing on these trees over here. I think I'm gonna put another little section up here, maybe a section or two here that kind of go up into the trees like that, and it shows you that these trees are continuing on, covering up some of these branches or some of these trunks. Then I'll come back and pick up a color like an orange or a yellow, sort of lay it right in over the top of some of these so they look like they're really embedded in the painting instead of just glued on. That's the danger when you do this. Looks like it's glued on right there. So I don't like that, so I'm going to come below it and put in some, whoops, I got some nice dark brown on my brush, which I didn't like, but we will use it. Okay, so I just sort of blended that all together by just using the wet on wet technique and putting in some heavier paint now back here. Up here we're going to blend that away. So it looks like they're just sort of embedded in the wood. You don't have to make them all look like they're glued on. Down here there's a lot more green, I guess. I'm going to use my sap green and some of my yellow, cad yellow. Even put a little dab of white in there to sort of lighten it up a little bit. See if I can get that lighter color. I don't know. Don't know whether that'll work or not. Let's see here. Yeah, there's some. I'm going to throw some of that green in and around this area because it is these things down here. I'm right above the rocks. Got a bunch of rocks to do down here, so I better get moving. Put in between these. Should have put this in before I put the tree trunks in, but I didn't, so I'll just paint around them and make you think I did it right. Maybe I'll make you think that. Put a few of the greens up here. We got more of that green going down this side over here. So we're getting some nice light colors here that are actually probably too bright for this time of the season. I don't know, but sometimes the green grass hangs on, especially in areas where they're not getting enough, haven't died off enough yet. Combinations of ochres and yellows and sort of thing. Got some rocks here I got to put in. Okay, so we'll just kind of mix that up, make it look like it all belongs there. All right, down here we got some more oranges coming in, more trees coming in over here. A lot of tree vegetation here going on, folks. Okay. All right, I think that's maybe enough. I'm gonna just see if I can put in a few little light branches here. I don't know if you can even see them. They may be too light. That brush over there. There's a ton of, put a little something going through up here like this. Yeah. I could spend a long time doing this, and I probably might do a little bit after the painting's over. I don't want to continue to bore you with this, but I want to show you how you can just make these things look like tons and tons of trees and branches. And as long as you don't leave a sharp edge at the bottom, as long as you sort of blend it in with your foliage below or around, you will make it look like it's part of the landscape and it's not added on. These two things are sort of a mirror of each other. They are that way in the photograph, but I'm not going to leave them that way. I'm going to make them one a little taller than the other. Maybe even make this a little fatter. I don't know. So they're not identical twins. Put in a few more things like that, and just, this could be going on up into the trees back here somewhere. So I've lost the lost an edge, found an edge, blended it in. Okay, it's good enough for that. I think I'm getting almost all the foliage in that I want to get in. I may come back and put a little bit more on in after a bit, but I want to start getting on these rocks now. We got a lot of rocks out here. We've got this nice water we got to work on. So let's see. Daisy Snow from Pakistan. Oh. Ask, why are you using gray canvas instead of white? Okay, well, it's all about values. And if you get values right in your painting, you usually have a good value, have a good painting. So I use, I don't know if you can see over here, this is kind of beat up, but this is sort of a value chart from 1 up to 11 black, from 2, 3, 4, 5. So my canvas is about a 5 or a 6, if you can tell the value of it here. You might be able to see that. This chart over here, it's been ripped off and messed up. I need to replace it, but I have it this color so that if I'm looking for a value that's darker than mid value, it's going to be darker than my canvas. If it's lighter than mid value, it's going to be lighter than my canvas. So having the canvas a gray gesso, mid value gray gesso, helps me adjust my values. So if I know that I want these rocks to be the same color as my canvas or same value, then I'll paint that gray about the same color as my canvas. It has to be darker. I'll make sure that I make it darker here. So it just helps the value creation process right, and it's I've been using it that way for quite a while, and seems to really work for me. Sometimes I paint on white canvas, but most of the time it's this gray gesso, and it's all about trying to create the right value. And so with that said, let's see if we can start working on some of these rocks now. I don't know if I'm going to get how big these things are. They're kind of small in this photograph because they're so I'm going to see if I can try a few of these with my blue, add my blue and my Van Dyke brown, maybe a little bit of white. The blue and the brown will give me a gray. I also have gray in my, I can make gray with my Midnight Black. It's got, put just a little bit of blue there, and I got a way too much blue for my color of my rock here. I took all my palette off of the, so let's see, where we're gonna start. Back in here is sort of the darkest area, under this tree right here. Got some really dark rocks back in here. So this is a mixture of Prussian blue and Van Dyke brown, and I'm going to put a little alizarin in there and see if I can get it even a little darker. I want to change the color a little bit so it's not all the same color. There's water back in here a little bit, so I want to make sure I preserve that. And there's a big rock running right along here. See if I can change the color a little bit to maybe a brownish, more brown in it. See, these are all really a lot lighter than I'm showing right now. I'm painting in my darks, and I'll come back and use my highlights to carve out the rocks. So I'm just putting a underpainting here of this dark color. And anywhere I want to highlight a rock, I'm going to use my a lighter color over it and see if that works. See if I can get a little bit of a gray color here with my Van Dyke or dark sienna. Okay, I'm starting to get that color, a little bit of that rock color that I want. Take a little more time here, but these rocks are fairly rounded because they've been beat up and run over, and they had a lot of water running over them. So by double loading my brush, I just had dark on the bottom and light on the top, and all of a sudden I've got just really interesting little rocks there that just sort of split out. And I like that lighter color. I'm going to come back and see if I can put it on here. I want the top to have some highlight on it, combination of browns. I'm using a number 4 flat brush. Okay. Pick up some more of my white and dark sienna and put a little top on here. So you can paint these rocks either way. You can put the highlights on and come back and put the dark underneath them. But I'm letting a lot of colors mix and mingle on my brush here. So I'm getting some browns. I'm getting some of this bluish gray, kind of a steel gray color. And I'm changing the colors. I go back here in the distance. Down. Okay, this is all dark back there. Let's see here. Putting in some purples, putting in some, or violets, I guess I'd call it. Some blues, changing these colors a little bit around. And when it all looks like one big blob like that, you can come back then and take the darkest color that you have, a very dark color, if you can get one, and come back and sort of then separate them with some shadows like this. All of a sudden you see more rocks. Since they're all rounded, it kind of makes a interesting composition, because many times these rocks are angular. Usually angular is a definite shape for a rock, but when they've been pummeled by water for a long time, they get very rounded. I don't like this color that well over here. I'm going to change it. Okay. What else can I do there? I think that's got a few more gray rocks down here. There's a little bit of a gray rock. Connect this together and okay. So far I've been able to, hello Julie Reddy from Halifax, West Yorkshire, UK. Wow, welcome. So fun to see all these folks from all around the world. Okay, let's put a little highlight on that rock there. And maybe a couple highlights back here. All right. The rest of this is going to be water. There's a few rocks sitting out in the water, but for the most part that's going to be water with reflections. This rock here has a three-tone rock actually. I'm going to use my white with a little bit of my violet for the top. I may have to come back and restate this after I put my water in, but here's a case, Daisy, where I want this rock to be lighter than mid-value, so I'm using my canvas as a guide to make sure that you can see that rock. And canvas is mid-value, so I want to be able to show you that rock, so I know it has to be lighter than the canvas. And then it gets darker. It gets actually a change of color as it goes down. Picks up a little of this reddish color here in these areas, and starts changing from that gray to a reddish color. Comes down here like this. Where'd my reddish color go? I'm using dark sienna for that. Like that. There's a nice color change, and then it starts getting really dark down at the bottom of this. So let's do that. I'm going to just put this whole rock in and get it done. And it gets a darker gray. It's a much darker gray. If I can get it darker down here as we go down into the water. So I really have three tones, but I have three values as well. So the brown is sort of the mid. I don't know if this is an area that has, maybe has tide coming in, where when the tide is in, the water is at a different place on this rock than it is when the tide is out. So we're seeing it maybe with the tide out, and we can see this entire rock pretty much. I'm taking a look here, reading what Heather's got to say. You ever seen the red and blue filters made to look through? Help the viewer identify values. Yes, I have seen those. I haven't used them. I know they're supposedly, they basically are trying to turn a scene into black and white. And if you can do that, you can really see the values really well. And I usually try to, the other trick that most artists use, they'll just try to squint their eyes a little bit. And that seems to help somewhat. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know anybody that's used them. I haven't known an artist that used them. I've tried to take a photo, and you can't do it really when you're outside. You have to do it when you're back in your computer and you have your photo in a photo management software, and you can actually take all the color out of it. You basically desaturate it, and like Photoshop will do that. Another software, photo imaging softwares will do that. You take all of the saturation out and it becomes black and white. And then you can actually see and print off, if you want, a photographic image that's all black and white. So that's a trick, nice trick to learn. So I do that every once in a while to try to get a value map, because I always do my value map, but I kind of do it by brute force. Instead of taking the color out of my my painting, out of my photo. Okay, let's see. Now I think I want to do this water, and it's very, very dark as well. But we're going to use. I told you I wasn't using liquid white, but think I'm going to get a little bit of liquid white out on my plate here and use it because it does such a good job helping me. I've got my liquid white in a bowl here that I can, not a bowl but a jar, because it does, it comes in large containers. All right, let's put that over here. So now I've got this liquid white, and I'm going to put it underneath where I want the paint to go for the water. So I'm just putting a little liquid white here. See how easy it, smoothly it covers, and how fast it is. Covers a lot of canvas in no time. I have another rock over here on this side that I'm going to leave room for. Barely see that rock standing out there. Okay, now we're getting some uglies, aren't we? All right, now, so the reason this liquid white is so good for this is because it makes a nice slick covering for the canvas. It allows you to put paint over it and pull it down and give this nice reflectivity to the water, which is what tells the viewer this is water. It looks like snow right now. We know it's not snow. Could be in a few months if it's in New Hampshire. This area could be covered in snow at some point. Probably is. All right, let me get this knife cleaned up. All right, so what are we going to do with this water? Now, we're going to take the colors that are in the background or around the water. Water has no color, right? I've told you that before. It only reflects what's in it, what's around it, what's above it. So when you try to paint water, you have to try to paint the colors that are either reflecting into it or are overhead. That's why you see a lot of water that's blue, but all water in paintings doesn't have to be blue. If you look at this photograph, you see that it's not. So I'm going to pull down some this brown color here into the water. Vertical strokes are telling the viewer that this is water. I want some oranges in there and yellows. Hope you can see that okay. Oops. So I'm using my orange color here and pulling down these colors. Mixing in some other color. A little bit of green in there for a little bit in some areas. This area over here has got probably more green in it. Yellow and green. Let's see here. I want some more of that brown color in here. Getting more brown. It's not dark enough, still very light. Let's see, we got more of these colors down here start looking more violet, more like the rock that they're reflecting above them here. So we'll change the color here and start pulling down color there, more with this violet in it. See, this liquid white, because it doesn't dry very quickly, lets you put this on, and you can come back then and start putting in some horizontal brush strokes that actually make it very smooth and make it look very much like water. This is a calm standing water right now. That's why it makes me think a little bit this might be a tidal area where the tide has gone out and left this water nice and smooth and soft. And so we're getting a lot of reflections here. As we come over this way, over toward me, we're getting a lot more darker colors in here. I'm going to have to come back and restate that rock, at least restate the edges of that rock. I'm just mixing all these colors on the brush without much regard to what's in the brush, but these vertical strokes is what tell you what's going on with this water. I'm going to put a little more okay. That definitely looks like water, right? Got some really good reflections in here. I'm going to pull back some more, or bring in some more darks in here to help highlight some of this area even more. Under these rocks. Okay, that dark makes the light really sparkle. Okay. Don't have a lot more to do once we get this water in. We've got one more rock to put in, and then maybe a little fine tuning of some of the rest of it here, but we're getting very close, folks. We've been going an hour and not quite an hour and a half. Normally my 2-hour time frame is sort of my target. Let's see here. This area over here is really dark. Put this in and then pull it down. You can pull it down or pull it up, either way. I think I want some more gray, some areas. Haven't cleaned this brush hardly at all. I've wiped it out maybe once, but basically it's just a mixture of all these colors, and I can't really see what's below that. I'm going to assume this is a, or here is a dark color reflecting that rock that's above it, which I haven't put in yet, but I'm going to. Okay. Still not nearly as dark as the photograph, but orange. I don't have my trees exactly reflecting in there yet either, do I? Like this tree over here, this one there. This big one right here. Didn't make them dark enough. Like that. There's a little one here. When they reflect, the tree leans that way, the reflection goes that way. So you want to make this thing go slightly like that, right? It makes it look more like the mirror would reflect it. Can't quite see it, can you? Let's see, I got the darker on this side. Let's put it like that. Okay, so you see what I'm saying about the reflections? When your tree goes that way, your reflection in the water goes the opposite way. If you were to draw an angle, it would be the same angle going the opposite way. Got some trees going down here, maybe some more reflections. Since we got a lot of trees up in there, we can put these, a lot more of these vertical reflections going on. Got a few darks in there and here. I did that one already. Something like that. All right. Bottom of this rock here. Got to come in and put some more dark stuff in there. It's not really standing out that much. There we go. See that sharp edge? This really, really sharp edge where I just pushed the brush down. That makes it, delineates it from the water behind it, and it starts telling you that's another object that is here. I want to show that that's rounded, so I'm sort of feathering the brush out as I come out. It has a little angled area here as well, so I'm going to try to make that stand out. And what else can I do with that thing? I can still put a few more things under it like this. Okay, this other rock on the other side, I might as well go get him and do it right now as well. He's got a little bit of brown in him and some dark colors. Let's see here. Brown and purple. So make it like that, sharp edge. Okay. I've got to smooth this. Whoops, that's wrong value. Pick up a lighter color here. I still want to try to make a sharp edge out of this if I can. There's a sharp edge. All right, then pull it back in, blend it. Don't leave it hard edge on all over the whole thing. Put in some other cracks and crevices and things like that. Make it look like we've got some, it's got something going on here. It's not just a one big blob, divide it up a little bit into sections and that sort of stuff. Okay, a little more dark in here. I think that's pretty decent. Put a little bit of highlight on this guy over here, maybe top. That. Oh, I got the wrong color blue in there. Don't want that in this brush. I put just a little bit of that phthalo blue in, and boy, it just takes over. You just have to really work with it to make sure it's not overtaking your painting. I've got areas here that I want to sort of do a little bit of work on. These areas here need to be lightened up a little bit, I think. Put some more highlights on. Just to bring them out a little bit. They're sort of too nondescript back there, and they are fairly close, so you want to give them some definition back there. I'm just using some titanium white and whatever gray color I can get on this brush. Something like that, maybe a little bit of color like this. There is a dark set of brush under here that sort of connect up into that other brush. Some really darks in here. Something like that. Okay. The thing that makes it nice for to make this look more like water is the fact, I mean, it looks pretty much like smooth water right now without doing anything, but you can use this landscape brush with this nice soft 1,000 bristles in there, and you can just start here and make a, let's start over here, make a soft sweep to the right. Sweep this way. All of a sudden I gave it a much softer appearance. Wipe that brush out, and so it doesn't look quite as hard, quite as rough edge, I guess is what I want to say. All right, I'm going to look for just a few more things to do, a little calligraphy. I've got some, I want to touch in some more of this, put some more paint on the canvas. I'm going to get my greens and cad yellows. I'm going to come back in here and start putting in some little heavier leaves and that sort of thing to sort of show you that there's more than just I really want to bring it forward. If I can actually put paint on there that stands out, it helps bring that object, whatever it is, tree or rock or whatever, if you put more heavier paint on it, it does come forward. I don't know how well you can see that, but that's what I'm trying to do. There's a lot of brush and stuff in here that's kind of hanging over these rocks and so forth. So I'm just going to dab in some really light highlights in some of these areas and just sort of drag it back up the bank. Helps tell you that this is what this is. Overpaint these rocks a little bit here with it. Over there, I've pretty well finished that over there. I don't think I want to put too much. I do want to bring this yellow color, this color, over in this area slightly. Why am I doing that, you ask? It's about trying to balance the painting out, trying to add, you don't want to have colors over here that you don't have over here or vice versa. You want to sort of mix them up a little bit. And as I'm saying that, I'm seeing that I have quite a bit of this violet gray color over here on the right, and I don't have much of it on the left. So pull out my little brush, get my violet, and I'm going to put in some dark accents. That's hopefully this color in here somewhere, in some places. Around these trees maybe, in some of these areas. We'll show some areas where we've got some maybe denser shadows back here. I didn't put in any shadows back here to speak of. So, I mean, I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of overkilling this thing a little bit, but basically I wanted you to see when you're talking about balancing a painting, you want to try to have a repetition of the colors on both sides of the painting. You don't want to have it all overloaded with one color over there or whatever, even though the photograph was really highly overloaded with the purples and the grays and that sort of stuff on the right side, and all the oranges and all of that on the left side. And while I'm speaking about that, I'm going to dry out my brush, and I'm going to go back and do something similar on the right side, because I don't really have any oranges or yellows sitting over here. So let's put a few little dabs of color, not much. Pick out some yellow, pick out some orange, and just sort of lay in a few little things where the trees are turning and maybe all the leaves haven't fallen off yet. But just enough to say, I know I'm not balancing this out properly if I don't put these colors over here. A couple of bushes down here that may be orange. They're starting to change already. All right, even put a little more orange down here. I got this, I want to balance it vertically and horizontally. And pretty much what I want to do there. See, maybe some of these cracks and crevices in this rock can be highlighted. There's a lot of, I'm not sure the best way, I don't know if rigger is the best thing to do that with. I'm going to dry some dry brush. I'm doing wet on wet, so trying to do dry brush over it is a little bit of a challenge, but see if I can do a little pulling down like this. Give me a little bit of texture in here, something that sort of makes it look a little rougher than just smooth rock, because it's not really a smooth rock, it's really a rough rock. Leave a few brush strokes in there, and same thing over here. Let's put a few scrapes, and I did some highlights already, but see, there's that dry brush technique. You take it and pull it real fast. You get a it skips over the canvas, and it gives you that nice little hit and miss over the canvas. And just move this back a little bit, connect it down here a little better. We do have the other thing I could do. I'm about finished here, folks. I want to just check it one more time for a little bit of balance. The thing that we also see in this painting, and it's a dry brush technique. Last thing I'm going to do is make this, some of these sparkles on the water. You can do this with oil paints, you can do it with acrylics and maybe pastels. It's really hard to do in watercolor. I don't know if I can even do it. I'm going to try to dry some of this off and just see if I can pull across very fast like this. I got running into my, there, that's the kind of thing I'm trying to get. I don't know if you can see that well, but making just a few strokes fast, barely touch the canvas. Something like that helps show there's some ripples in the water. I'm just using titanium white. There we go, something like this. All right, I think I closed up some of this. There's clear canvas in here. I want that white to just so stand out so much. All right, stop, 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 stop. I need somebody to tell me to stop. If you're getting tired and bored, tell me to stop. Okay, I'm going to sign this thing, and whoops, I see one rock that I didn't really quite finish off here. This little guy sitting right here is sort of a, kind of sticks out there in the water. Has a dark base on him, if I can get it dark. And dark shadow on the back side here. Come on, dark shadow, darker. Keep me painting here. All right, I think I'll let it go at that, and pick up a little bit of my thinner here and get my get a color on my brush that I can block print my name, and something that's a little bit darker than what's on the on here. I'm just gonna put it right in here. A little bit there. Okay, folks. What else can I do here? It's still not quite dark enough. All right. It's, okay, there we go. I think that's all I want to do. I may do a little touch up. I may do a few things in there, but basically I think I've got the rocks in there the way I want them. This little area looks kind of there. That's a little better. I left that, you can see the side of the brush there. I didn't like that. So that's good. Always use your finger for a brush if you run out of brushes. All right. I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining me. I'm glad to have so many folks here from around the world, and look for my watercolor painting next Wednesday at 1 o'clock, same time, if you want to follow watercolors. If you're not subscribed to my channel, there's a little bell looking icon next to the word subscribe, to the button that says subscribe, and if you're subscribed and you hit that button, it will unsubscribe you. If you hit that, and if you are subscribed and you want to be notified of my videos when they come out, press that little button and it will send, and YouTube will send you an email when I've uploaded a new video. It's a way of getting notified. So most people, I don't know if they know it, at least it's simpler than it used to be, but it's still not obvious how to get notified when somebody's putting up a new video. So try that, tell your friends, and check my website out on Facebook, and like I said, the sketch for this will be out on my website when I re-edit this video. In 2 or 3 days, I'll have a new version up. In the meantime, you can continue to watch this or back up and watch it. And so tell your friends if you like my painting, and have them check out my website, check out my YouTube videos, and subscribe. And there's the links will be down below for my website to the. I think I'll put the value map out there, and I put the sketch out there nowadays. So check that out. Until I see you again, this is Larry Hamilton saying so long for now. Goodbye. I'll zoom in here and there we go. You're welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time.